Okay, my piece is called The Deliveryman. There's a bar in Austin, Texas called Jake's Place. Prior to the abdication, it would have been jam-packed at this time of day. Now, with work and good liquor hard to find, I had the place to myself. "What is this stuff?" I asked the bartender. "Some moonshine from Tennessee. We might get some beer in from St. Louis next week if the deliveryman makes it through." I understood. A deliveryman myself, I knew most of the routes west of the Mississippi were dangerous. The only secure driving was from Arizona to the coast, where the Chinese megacorporations kept order on the highways. I made a living, by 2017 standards, hauling small loads in my modified van. Interstate commerce is not what it used to be since the federal government downsized itself out of existence. The private sector abhors a vacuum and rushed in when our elected officials threw in the towel, the problem seemingly too difficult to tackle in our polarized world. "What are you hauling this week?" asked the bartender. "I hit this place a couple of times a month on my western runs. I have a couple pallets of golf balls for some resort in the California desert. The Chinese do love to golf." The door opened, letting in a blast of Texas heat. A car engine roared, and the sound of gravel spitting from the tires overpowered the sound of an old Vince Gill tune playing on the jukebox. I noticed the bartender's eyebrows shoot up, and I swiveled on the stool to see what he saw. She was solid, not skinny, short brown hair with a hint of gray, tight jeans, a black Harley-Davidson t-shirt, and a beautiful stag and leather-handled Bowie knife strapped to her leg. She took the stool on my left. Turning toward me, she put out her hand. "Moira," she said, looking directly into my eyes. I felt like I had just been inspected by one of those total body scanners most corporate offices use to protect their executives from the regular folk. I shook her hand. "Dylan," I replied. "That your van out there?" she asked. "It is." "Where are you headed?" "I'm delivering a load of golf balls to Palm Springs." "I need transport. You got room?" I stared down at my shot glass and took a slow sip. I had to think this through. Human cargo was almost always a problem. I turned to face her. "What's in it for me?" I asked. "Well, I can pay you." "Where are you headed?" "How much?" she asked, ignoring my question. 5,000, Brazilian. It was a sad commentary on my country, on my time. The Brazilian real was a better option than the American dollar. "I'm going to make a phone call. Don't leave without me." She hopped off the bar stool and walked out the front door, dialing her mobile as she walked. I returned my attention to the shot glass, already having doubts. The cost-benefit analysis going on in my head was jumbled. I felt she was troubled, but 5,000 real would help out a lot. She burst through the door and headed straight for me. "Here's 1,000 now. It's all I have. My people will pay you the rest in Palm Springs. We have to go now," she said. "Whoa, what's the rush?" "Places to go, people to meet." She tried to sound light and flippant, but her directness and urgency signaled otherwise. 10,000. Your trouble," I said. "Deal, if we go right now." I slammed down the rest of my drink. "Let's go." We were about 40 miles west of Los Alamos. We had driven for hours in the pouring rain, mostly in silence. The sky was dark gray at noon. The 45-mile-an-hour gusts buffeted my slab-sided van. I was intent on the road and bone-tired. The cab was cozy, bathed in the monitor's gentle light. Moira had her reading light on, but her book lay open on her lap. I could see an inverted pentagram on the worn leather cover. I never would have guessed she was into that sort of thing, crystals, witchcraft, but I was often misled by first impressions. "Interesting reading," I said. "I was looking for a way to influence this weather," Moira responded. "I wish you'd hurry up and get around to it then. I could use a break from this wind," I replied. "According to my weather radar, I should be clear of this storm, well, never." Weather was just one of the things that had turned odd since the abdication. "Thanks for taking the back roads. I know you'd have an easier time on the toll roads," she said. Most of the major roads, the interstates the citizens paid for with their hard-earned money, were privately owned now and heavily monitored. We were on the old state roads, 2 lanes, narrow, not really the best choice for my van. I looked over at her. She was staring out the window looking at the barren New Mexico high desert. "Obviously you're in some sort of trouble. It might help if I knew what kind," I said. She spoke so softly I had to strain to hear her response over my Thelonious Monk CD. I saw something I shouldn't have. A gust hit the van hard. I jerked the wheel and brought it back to center. Normally I would stop in these driving conditions, nap in the bunk, and wait out a storm like this. but my gut told me I had better keep moving. And now, you're on the run? From who? I asked. Look, I think you're a nice guy. I don't want to get you involved. Let's talk about something else. The less you know about those things, the better. How much time do you spend on the road? Most of my deliveries are day jobs. Once in a while I overnight. That's why I have the bunk behind you. Actually, I more or less lived in this van, though she didn't really need to know that. I see your wedding ring. I suppose your wife appreciates you being home most nights, Moira said. My wife died 1 year, 7 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days ago. She opened her book and resumed reading. I turned the music up. We rode in silence for half an hour. The storm lessened some. The sky still looked like weathered steel, but the wind had backed off, and we hadn't had any rain in a while. I'm not sure who they are. Sometimes I think I've lost them, but they always seem to find me, she said, breaking the calm. Maybe I should have asked a few more questions before agreeing to haul you west. I saw her smile reflected in her window. My radar monitor flashed red and beeped. I looked in my mirror and noticed headlights. Out of habit, I reached down on my right between the seats and felt the comfort of cold steel. I always kept it loaded and close by when on the road. Be prepared, I learned that as Boy Scout. And if there's trouble coming, a Mossberg Persuader is pretty good preparation. Moira, noticing my movements, turned her head and glanced at the passenger side mirror. We've got company, she said. I looked out my mirror and saw a black Lincoln Town car approaching in the left lane. One of the heavy ones from maybe 2010. Didn't look like anything to worry about, but out of habit I gripped the steering wheel firmly at 9 and 3. The Lincoln had come alongside, and while I was considering my options, it slammed into my side of the van. The Lincoln was a big car, but no match for an armored van. The right wheels barely kissed the shoulder before I swung hard to my left and knocked the Lincoln into a steep ditch on the other side of the narrow road. I could see in the mirror that the Lincoln was nose down, the back wheels off the ground. I pulled off to the left shoulder and stopped. I heard the passenger door slam shut before I even had my seatbelt off. I reached back for the Mossberg while opening my door. It wasn't there. I got out of the van. Where the hell are you going? I shouted. Oh, kid here, sorry. We need to get out of here. Moira walked quickly to the disabled car. Only then did I notice she had the Mossberg over her right shoulder. The driver of the Lincoln furiously tried to free his jammed door. Moira remained calm. She walked over to the driver's side, pointed the Mossberg at the window, and pulled the trigger. The inside of the car was instantly covered with rain and blood splatter. I could no longer see inside. Moira got to the passenger side and yanked the door open. The other man was slumped unconscious, still strapped in his seat. Moira calmly took the Bowie knife out of its holster and slit the man's throat. As we walked back to the van, she tossed the Mossberg to me and went around to her side. Let's get moving, she said. Who are you?